At the age of 2, he was homeless and abandoned by his mother, who was sleeping at parks, gyms, and the backseat of his car with his unemployed father. By the age of 23, he was the most assigned shooting guard the NBA had ever seen. With 60-point games against Kobe, 3 All-Star appearances, historic playoff buzzer beaters. Yet, by the age of 30, he was already out of the league and forgotten. Gilbert Arenas was born in Tampa, Florida. He didn't quite have a regular childhood. Gilbert's parents broke up when he was only 6 months old, and his mother leaving him at the age of 2 due to a drug addiction. This led to Gilbert living with his grandmother. When Gil was 3 years old, his father decided to step in and take Gilbert from his grandmother. Gil's father says, "I never turned back. Ever since, it's just been the 2 of us." Gilbert's father desired to be an actor, so he drove across the country to LA with Gil's stepmother. Halfway through the drive, Gil's stepmother broke up with his father. Another lady figure vanished from Gil's life. When the father-son duo made it to California, Gil Sr. attempted to get an apartment, but was harshly denied as he only had $25 to his name and half a tank. Gil mostly slept in parks, drugstore parking lots, often seeing lots of cops due to them getting kicked out. A young Gil was worried and sensing things weren't normal. He asked his dad, "Is everything going to be alright?" With tears rolling down Gilbert Sr.'s cheeks, he said, "It's going to be okay." Luckily, getting kicked out the last parking lot was a pivotal moment to Gil's success. His father then drove to a YMCA as another sleeping spot, where it was adults only. However, an employee allowed them to sleep on a mattress inside the YMCA. Arenas Sr. says, "That was good enough. It was a true blessing." The blessing was far bigger than he could have ever imagined, as Gil would sneak onto the court and play with grown men, where his natural talents were officially recognized. Older men asked Gil, "Do you play?" And Gil responded, "A little." This was the family's first break. As he loved Gil so much, he offered Gil's father a job. Gil was finally able to get a roof under his head and no longer had to grill hot dogs in the backseat of his car with the iron. During Gil's high school years, he was a killer. He scored 2,124 points and averaged 33.4 points per game as a senior. He was the number 4 shooting guard in the country, ranked 99th in the top 100. Sadly, this wasn't enough, as auto-tuning and morning workouts and late-night workouts didn't quite get him a scholarship to his dream school, UCLA, and barely any D1 scholarships. But through his amazing high school performances, he was invited to play at Michael Jordan's camp. He played on the same team as the GOAT. 8 possessions in a row, Gil got the ball and made a play for a bucket. He scored 8 times in a row, impressing MJ. Right after the camp ended, MJ made a phone call to Arizona head coach to offer a scholarship to a young Gil. This led to Gil signing to Arizona and being on national televised TV. In Gil's freshman season with the Wildcats, he was expected to be a backup to Ruben Douglas, or possibly even redshirt. Gil's relentless competitiveness kicked in once he heard this. He would spend hours playing in recreation leagues on campus, dominating. He had 60, 70-point games. It got so bad, Coach Lou Olson briefly tried to ban Gil from the Student Recreation Center, saying, "Too much shooting, not enough studying." When official practice began, Gil knew he had to find some way on the court. And the team's first practice, Gil pumped fake Douglas, their starting shooting guard, into the next area code. He was out of the picture. Douglas went on to transfer to New Mexico, landing Gil the starting spot. In Gil's second year, he led the Wildcats to the semifinal game of the national championship against Michigan State. While Gil was on defense, he ran through a screen, stealing the ball and dunking it. However, a play that seemed so simple was so devastating. Gil got a bruised chest, leading to him barely being able to raise his arm. With the wounded Gil, he finished the game with 17 points and 6 steals. Gil ended up leading the Wildcats to a national championship game against Duke. Gil laid it all out on the floor, but he was too banged up, leading to him shooting 4-17 and costing his team the national championship. The once homeless kid had a big choice to make, either stay in college to get stronger, faster, and quicker, or change his life forever. Gil declared for the draft. During Gil's pre-draft workout, he dominated his first day, but due to a freak Achilles tear, Gil missed his second workout. Celtics owner labeled Gil as immature, a quitter, causing Gil to get bumped out of the first round. Gil's huge personality and insane confidence got the best of him during the treadmill test also. Gil got on a treadmill for 3 minutes and then Gil refused to do it because he just bought a crisp pair of all-white Converses and they were scuffing them, refusing to continue. Gil felt like his dreams were slipping out of his hand. He was no longer a lottery pick or first rounder due to unfortunate events and immaturity, and asked the Arizona recruiter if he could go back to college, but he was denied. Days before the draft, Gil decided to go to a bank to get a loan. He then proceeded to buy a chain with his initials and a Cadillac Escalade with 5 TVs and top-tier stereo system. Draft night arrived and his father hosted a draft party. Gil sat at home watching pick after pick. When the Sacramento Kings pick arrived, he told his father that was his destination.
The Sacramento Kings select Gerald Wallace.
The Kings selected Gerald Wallace, and Gil's heart was shattered into pieces. Gil left the apartment with tears rolling down his cheek. He was devastated. He threw his initialized chain out the window. Hearing his teammate Richard Jefferson getting called before him, as he saw over an open wound.
Houston Rockets select Richard Jefferson from the University of Arizona.
Gil on his draft night experience. That's probably the first day I cried since I was 5. I was heartbroken. Even when the world seemed like it collapsed, Gil got selected by the Golden State Warriors as his 31st pick. Going to Gil's rookie season, he chose the number 0 to signify the number of minutes that experts predicted he would play. But Gil's big splurge before the draft caused him to be homeless once again, something he had been escaping since he was only 6 months old. Gil would sleep in the practice facility as he was trying to pay off a $300,000 loan, which was his entire rookie salary. Gil, being in a familiar setting, used it to his advantage. He would spend countless hours working with NBA legend Chris Mullin, perfecting his shot. Gil treated every opportunity he got as a game. In Gil's first year, he started off slow. Many games he didn't dress up and play. However, when Gil's number was called, he obliterated people's expectation. Had a 32-point outburst against the Jazz, leading to him starting 30 games during the season. He finished the season being second in points per game among rookies with 10.9. Coming into the second season, Gil's approach was different. He devoured scouting tape and just had the look in his eyes, said the legendary Chris Mullin. Gil announced he would be starting by the All-Star break. Fans laughed at him to the point their cheeks turned red. With the crazy in front of Gil's mind, he won a 3-game avalanche. On Thursday, he gave the Bulls 28. On Saturday, he gave the Bucks 30. And on Sunday, he gave the Pistons 28, averaging 29 points per game. And his fourth game on Tuesday had an explosion with 41 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists against the Wizards. Gil's hunger to win was apparent. Almost seemed like he was drooling as he had championship aspirations. He would smash clipboards, frustrated with team losses. He was named Baby Ron Artest by Jason Richardson. He finished the season as the most improved player. When asked about his success, in Gil fashion, he responded, "I didn't think there was much to improve, and I only needed more playing time and more experience." The league's bright up-and-coming star was now a free agent. Since Gil was picked in the second round, Golden State was unable to keep him because once they received an offer sheet, the Warriors would have to go over the salary cap to match it. As a response to this, the Gilbert Arenas rule was created, which gives teams the ability to go over the salary cap to match the contracts of restricted free agents taken in the second round. With Gil deciding where his destination would be to truly blossom, Gil indecisive and with his palms sweating, he flipped the silver 25-cent coin, choosing between the Wizards and the Clippers. The coin dropped and the Washington Wizards were now the home of Gilbert Arenas. He signed a 6-year, $65 million contract, promising the Wizards playoff contention.
This year is going to be very exciting. I can prove it, and I'm going to do it. We're going to make the playoffs.
In Gil's first season, he only started 52 games. He struggled with a strained abdominal muscle throughout the season, but Gil managed to still perform at an all-time high with 19.6 points, leading the team in points and assists. Coming into Gil's fourth year, his offensive game was on full display. He was an artist, painting on his canvas. His first step was so quick and explosive, leaving opponents feel like they were in quicksand looking as Gil passed them. Gil was able to get anywhere on the court. He was averaging 25.5 points per game, earning him the nickname Hibachi, for how quick he would get hot and destroy opponents. While his teammate Larry Hughes was averaging 22, they were a dynamic backcourt. Gil was named an NBA All-Star for the first time in his career, and his prophecy of taking the Wizards to the playoffs came true. Entering the first round of the playoffs, Gil took on the Chicago Bulls. During Game 5, Gil struggled. With the Bulls' constant pressure and hard-nosed defense, they smothered and bothered Gil. But with 5 seconds left and time dripped off the clock, Gil spins off of Kirk Heinrich, raising up at the elbow and the iconic game winner, giving the Wizards a 3-2 lead. Gil and the Wizards went on to defeat the Bulls in Game 6. The Wizards earned the first playoff victory in over a decade, but would sadly get swept by Dwayne Wade and the Miami Heat in the next round. Gil's footprint was officially on the NBA, and his fifth season he made an even bigger leap. He went from averaging 25.5 points per game to 29.3 points per game. He was once again named an NBA All-Star and led the Wizards to another winning season and the 5th seed in the playoffs. Gil went on to face the up-and-coming star LeBron James. In Game 1, Gilbert finished with 26 points, but it wasn't enough as LeBron finished with 32, capturing the victory. Game 2 arrived, Gil stepped up his game with 30 points and a victory for the Wizards. Game 3 and 4, Gil dropped 30 and 34 points, making a 3-game, 30-point game streak. The series was tied 2-2, and Game 5 was a series tiebreaker. With Gil desperate for a win to keep his championship dream alive, Gil turned into Hibachi. He torched the Cavs with 44 points, making it a 4-game, 30-point game streak, but it wasn't enough. The biggest game of Gil's young career arrived. With the brink of elimination in the front of Gil's mind, it was short from spectacular. Within the first 3 quarters, it looked like the Wizards were going to push the series to Game 7. As the fourth quarter approached, the game was tight, no team getting the edge. The fourth quarter was a bloodbath, with the team going blow after blow. Just as it looked like the series was over, Gilbert Arenas showed the fans why they call him Agent Zero.
Looking to inbound, Arenas puts up the 3. Gilbert Arenas!
The game tied and the Wizards itching for a victory pushed it to overtime. As both teams went to overtime, it was close, but the Wizards managed to grab onto a thin lead and Gil was fouled. With the game on the line, the ball was in the Wizards' best player, Gilbert Arenas. As he was at the free throw line, he missed the first one. With fans' hearts sinking to their stomach, Gil had another chance to make it a 2-point game. Gil calmly stares at the rim, looking unfazed. Then a 6'9" LeBron James slowly walks over and gently taps Gil on the shoulder and says, "You missed the free throw and you're going home." with a blank expression almost as if Gil dozed off. Gil's heart pumping through his chest and the whole city of DC with their eyes on him. Gil missed both free throws, letting the game slip right out of his hands, and the Wizards lost yet another playoff series. With that moment on Gil's mind for weeks and months, he saw out the great Kobe Bryant's Black Ops trainer, who put Gil through unbearable workouts, clearing his mind of failure and shifting his mind toward complete success. Gil channeled his mindset into Team USA camp, where he was recognized as one of the best players in the league. Gil stepped on the court dominating as final cuts were about to arrive, with coaches gripped tightly to their pen and close to their papers to see who will earn the last spot. Gil seemed like a no-brainer. In Team USA's next practice, Gil pulled his groin and let the coaches know, saying he didn't want to hold up a spot. Once the coach heard this, he told Gil, "It's okay, you were on the bubble anyway." Gil felt insulted as he was cut for Kirk Heinrich. He lit up with flames. The legendary Chris Paul said,
"When they cut him, Gil let all them know. He let all them know. He was like, listen, when I play y'all, I'm going to give you 50, I'm going to give you 60. And he said, if I could go back to college, Coach K, I'd give you 70.
Furious and insulted, Gil didn't fly back with the team. Instead, he just left. On December 22nd, 2006, Gil had vengeance on his mind and the look of death in his eyes against the Mike D'Antoni-led Suns, who cut Gil off Team USA in the summer for Kirk Heinrich. With that boiling in Gil's blood, he cut them apart like a surgeon, flying past defenders and gliding past them, hitting the brakes for an easy bucket after bucket. Gil looked Mike D'Antoni right in his soul, finishing the game with 54 points. But that game wore Gil down, as in his next matchup against the Nate McMillan-led Trailblazers, who also decided to cut him from Team USA, Gil only finished with 9 points on 3 of 15 shooting. However, on a cold December night in Los Angeles, with Gil's poor performance fresh in his mind, he matched up against his idol, Kobe Bean Bryant. And this is when Agent Zero was officially born. Gil played out of his mind. He couldn't miss, lacing in threes, hitting the emergency break on defenders, 1-0 pull-ups. The full arsenal was on display. With the game coming down in crunch time, the Mamba tried to stop Gil, but he was no match. As said by the legendary Kobe himself, Gil had no conscience. Gil picked them apart in a pair of Dolce & Gabbana sneakers and led the Wizards in an overtime victory, finishing with 60 points, the most ever scored on Kobe Bryant. He broke the Wizards' single-game scoring record. He was a fan favorite and NBA All-Star, part of the All-NBA team. He was a most efficient high-usage player in the NBA, better than LeBron, better than Dwayne Wade. He was Agent Zero. However, an unexpected event occurred. Against the Charlotte Bobcats, J.R. Watts went up for a layup, falling on Gil's leg. With Gil slapping the wooden floor, grimacing in pain, he was out with a torn MCL. Potentially one of the greatest seasons fans had ever witnessed was officially over. Gil finished season 8th in MVP voting and averaged 28.4 points per game. With intensive rehab that made Gil furious and saddened, causing him to almost leave the game, he returned on April 2nd, 2008. He scored 17 points in his first game in over 6 months. Yet, he just wasn't the same. He was benched for most of the season to avoid disrupting the Wizards' chemistry. The Wizards managed to get to the playoffs, but Gil played limited minutes and injuries started to creep up on him again. He was ruled out in Game 4 against the Bulls. With the new season and new opportunities, Gil inked a 6-year contract worth $124 million. Even with the injuries, the Wizards showed their loyalty to the city's rising star. Sadly, Gil didn't make his debut during the season until March 28, 2009. He scored 15 points with 10 assists. In second game against the Cavs, he finished with 11 points and 10 assists. And that was it. Gil didn't play the rest of the season. The injuries were just too much for him. The Wizards also missed the playoffs. Coming into the next season on opening night, Gil turned back the clock. He came out blazing, finished with 29 points, and in the game against the Warriors, he finished with 45 points. Agent Zero was back. However, Gil and the team were flying to the next city for their next matchup. As Gil was asleep, he heard a lot of chatter. His teammates JaVale McGee, Javaris Crittenton, and Edward Borkins were arguing over a card game, with Crittenton palms sweating and face dripping as he was losing a huge gambling match of $1,100. Things got heated between Gil and Crittenton as he got involved in the game. Crittenton said, "Oh, screw you. You'll try to money talk somebody." Gil said, "Come get it with your hands if you want to miss deal," as he was accused of cheating. Javaris says, "If we were in the streets, I'll pop you on your knees." Gil's final words were, "I'll give you the guns to do it on Monday." 2 days later, Gil entered the Wizards' locker room, walked into Javaris' locker and placed 4 unloaded guns in his locker, saying, "Pick one." But things went way worse than Gil expected, with Javaris pulling out a loaded gun on Gil. Teammates rushed out the locker room and feared what was about to go down. With teammates in fear of their lives, the police arrived at the Wizards facility, and the commissioner was alerted. During the game against the 76ers, Gil jokingly mocked the situation heard around the world, making gun gestures. He finished the game with 19 points, but was sadly suspended for the entire season and faced court. During Gil's court hearing, he was on the brink of going to prison for 3 months for constantly altering his story. However, he pleaded guilty to illegal possession of an unlicensed handgun in December 2009. Gil was sentenced to 2 years of probation, also 30 days in the halfway house and a $5,000 fine. Gil's career was wiped away. He was no longer a star. He became a villain, a thug, in many people's eyes. In the following season, Gil came back looking unlike himself. He went from number 0 to number 9. He was out of shape, he looked nervous, and second-guessed his offensive abilities. Gil straight to the Magic for Rashard Lewis. However, this gave Gil the chance to play with the best center at the time in Dwight Howard, but Gil was just mentally damaged. At the end of the lockout year, where games went from 82 to 66, Gil was waived under the amnesty clause, being the first player to be waived under the newly established clause at the time. Gil cleared waivers and became a free agent. Gil decided to sign with the Memphis Grizzlies for a fresh start. He was only 30 and still had gas left in the tank. Gil was a backup point guard and managed to make the playoffs, but they lost in the first round during Game 7 against the Clippers. On May 13, 2012, Gil played his last NBA game at only the age of 30. Gil's love for the game was still there. He didn't want to leave all he knew. He signed with the Shanghai Sharks. In his first season and only season, he averaged 20.7 points per game, but they missed the playoffs and Gil decided to retire. However, Gil transferred his love for the game and joking personality into something people can enjoy with his own personal YouTube channel. Gilbert Arenas, age of 0, was one of the most electrifying players we've ever seen. He went from his mother walking out on him at 2 and a homeless child to the most anticipated name in the NBA. In his 3-year run, he was truly poetic. He was fast like the Flash, had a finishing touch like Kyrie, and could shoot with the best of them. He was a true example of where hard work could take you, but how foolery with poor decisions can end you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and click on this video to figure out how Carmelo Anthony destroyed the NBA off of just one move.